Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Back in Illinois, they had this sign on the signage for Wise Guys Haircuts. And it read as follows: "If we can't make you look good, you ugly." Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning. You ugly. No, I'm not. Get a haircut. Oh, good morning. There we have the lovely Kate Smith. As the moon goes over and comes over the mountain, whatever the title was. Good morning, everybody. I'm Zeb Bell at Zeb at the Ranch, and our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley, and our friends at Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today, 734-6969. Gina Jameson is a very, very valued part of our program, along with my lovely wife, Deanne. I can't thank either one of them enough for all they do. Good morning, Gina.
Well, good morning, sunshine, and a fine Tuesday it is.
I didn't miss the score of the 49ers-Rams game by much.
What was the final score?
31-17.
Isn't that what you called, or did you call?
No, I called 34-17.
Yeah, and pretty darn close.
Yeah, and I felt bad for the Rams. They started off really good, and I thought that they would be strong till the end, but boy, I mean, they wilted like a flower without water.
You know, and hopefully maybe one of these days they will actually have a team that can compete.
You know, there's talk, and I'm sure you've heard this, that they may move back to L.A.
Really?
Yeah.
And what would that gain them?
I think possibly the rejuvenation of the old attitude of conflict and welcome conflict between the 49ers, and I think also LA is craving for a pro football team again. The size of that city and not having a pro football team is ridiculous.
Okay, but and of course we've got to move on with the pledge, but here's my question, or maybe it's kind of rhetorical. California already has 2 NFL teams. They've got the Raiders and the 49ers.
No, they've got 3.
Okay, who's the other one?
San Diego Chargers.
Oh, yes. So 3.
Yeah.
So what would benefit them?
Because of the area and the populace served, and all of them have had outstanding attendance records. L.A., when they had the Rams earlier, they had outstanding attendance, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Anyway, yeah. I know we're running late, but I don't know what's going to happen on that. St. Louis has not had very good crowds, but then on the other hand, the team's not played very well.
True that.
Yeah. Okay, do we have pleasure?
We have Mr. Carl Clark on for the pledge.
No.
Rogers on for the weather.
I know I'm running a little bit late. Carl, good morning. Thank you for your patience. Go ahead.
Good morning, Zeb. Thank you. It's my honor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Carl Clark, my friend, thank you. God bless you for your call. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great day, Zeb.
Thank you, sir. I wish the same to you and your lovely wife. Hey, don't forget Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. My goodness sakes, they've got all the repurposed furniture. Yes, Whitney was telling us about that last Thursday. And they've got great ideas for you as far as redecorating your house. And don't forget, they say that they will meet or beat any price on flooring. They can help you beautify your home. Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Number to call, 678-6945. Look for the blue door. Here's Michael Rogers' weather.
Good morning. Another nice day. Where the story is going to be for the remainder of the week, clouds and cooler temperatures. Now, you don't have any rain in the forecast, and I got this nasty habit of telling you what's going to happen 3 days ahead of time and telling you what's going to happen for today. Forgive me, folks. Sunny, 75 for the high today. The rest of the week, you're going to see sunny clouds, and the temperatures are going to be in the 60s. So I guess today is a nice day. Every day is a good day. Some days are better than others. Enjoy the weather. Tell me what you got.
I like that. Some days are better than others. How true. Hey, Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley, 678-6945. Look for their blue door, bringing you Michael Rogers' weather. Holy smokes, I want to remind you again, I said this yesterday, the GOP state bus tour will be in the Mini-Cassia area on Thursday, October 23rd from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Burley Inn Convention Center. There will be a potato bar for everybody to have dinner and meet and talk to the candidates. And the party's new state chairman, Steve Yates, good guy. I enjoyed having him on the program. We'll be there to meet everybody. And at 8 p.m., they'll hold a joint Republican Central Committee meeting for the Cassia and Minidoka counties. There you go. Want to remind you, too, Burley Livestock Sale Yard. Don't forget, they've got a sale every Thursday starting at 10:30, and boy, their sales are ripping good sales. They had a whole bunch of calves last weekend. They're located at 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley. Number to call, 678-9411. And don't forget, for consignments, get a hold of those guys. Merv at 431-5735, Cade 431-0074, and Lance Udy at 431-4174. This is the sale that works for you. Burley Livestock Sale Yard, 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley. Thursday, 10:30 sale time. All right, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'm not going to stay on any one particular title this morning, or topic, I should say. I will say that the stay on gay marriage was lifted by the Ninth Circuit Court, and I will personally say I think it's the demise of family values. It's supposed to be lifted as far as the ban is concerned tomorrow. Governor Otter can possibly today appeal to the Supreme Court, but right now I'll just simply say that sickness, pervertedness, and disgusting attitudes are going to be prevalent in the state of Idaho, and it's a win for the liberal left. And I just wished I had better news on that this morning in regards to a more wholesome story for families, but I do not. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Want to remind you, too, about Idaho's number one choice for wireless high-speed internet. It is SafeLink Internet Services, the fastest internet speeds, period. No contracts required, no credit checks, unlimited data, and all you have to do is just call and order it today. Tell them Zeb sent you, 677-8000. That number again, 677-8000 for SafeLink Internet Services. Great people to work with. Idaho's number one choice, SafeLink Internet. You know, talking about number one choice, my number one choice in cleaners, no question about it, is Daryl's Cleaners with Kevin and the crew at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. They can help restore items that other people might say, nah, they're worthless. Throw them away. Get rid of them. No. On something like that, you want to be sure and take it in to Kevin and let him take a look at it. And don't just throw it away. Go let Kevin see it first, okay? At Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. They can clean anything. All your rumply crumplies come back brand spanking new. Daryl's Cleaners in Burley, the best. All right, come on, get on the phone, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Had an email yesterday come in And I haven't asked this man to give the liberty of using his name on the air, so I'll just say an email from a friend of mine, and he criticized me for being so upset about the Ebola virus spreading. And he made some analogies about, it's not that big a deal, and, there's more people killed in this activity and that activity. No, wait a minute. This is where I draw the line, and I know he's listening this morning. The Ebola virus is spreading thanks to a lack of wisdom, basically a stupid policy by this administration and government in general, to let airplanes and passengers and incoming people to the United States come here and bring the disease with them. There should have been, in my estimation, a stoppage on all flights coming in and a stoppage on immigration until we found out what is going on. It should have been shut down and contained. Now, many doctors are coming out with the same attitude and the same response. The latest one this morning was a Dr. David Samadi, very well-known New York physician, said this morning that Obama's policy is unbelievably dangerous. Unbelievably dangerous. Yet, yesterday, at Logan Airport in Boston, the plane pulls up to the taxiway, to the corridors to let the passengers off, and 5 people on board were deathly sick, vomiting, etc., very sick, and they are not sure yet if those people are suffering from Ebola. But what made me so very upset yesterday, and I want your comment on this, is that the Democrats have turned this situation into partisan politics. And you know my feeling about Democrats, you know my feeling about their partisan politics, you know my feeling about their platform. Well, it's a lot worse this morning because the Democrats put out a TV ad blaming the Republicans in general across the United States for the Ebola virus coming here because of budget cuts. This is pathetic. This is politics at its very worst. And Democrats are like little children. Take the candy away from them and go make them sit in the corner. That's what they deserve. How many of you honestly were offended by that ad? I don't care what party you belong to or if you're independent. That ad was repulsive, and the Democrats should absolutely be ashamed. Literally hang their head in shame for being that stupid. Calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Scott Gano, Landscaping and Sprinkler Service, 336 South, 450 West of Paul. I've been telling you that the cold weather's coming. Michael's been warning us. And if you've got sprinklers, you better call them to get on the list to blow out your sprinklers before they freeze and really do some damage. You don't want that done. They do a great job helping you with your sprinkler systems. Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service. The number to call, 438-2485. And don't forget, they can get all your trees properly pruned, whether they're fruit trees, ornamental shade trees, whatever. And also all the stumps dug out. There you go. Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service, 438-2485. And also our thanks go out to Ramsey Heating and Electric. I absolutely appreciate everything they've done for the many years on this program. And they want to remind you, too, that now's the time to call 678-0459 and get your furnace serviced. You betcha that old furnace stays down in the basement all by itself, lonesome and everything, and then you turn the thermometer up and you expect it to perform efficiently. Well, make sure that you get it serviced, ready for the cold weather, and also make sure you have the air filters, brand new clean air filters for peak efficiency. Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, 678-0459, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. All right, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Let's see what else. Oh, and there needs to be a replacement. I said this yesterday, and I'll stand behind it. A gentleman by the name of Dr. Frieden is supposedly the mouthpiece for the CDC. And of anybody that they could have picked to do the national television and radio spokesman job for the CDC and Ebola, it's not him. He honestly looks like a modern-day version of Dracula. And then he said something yesterday that's got all the newscasts buzzing. He said, with his eyes down at his paper, nervously, he said, we need to rethink our Ebola policies and strategies. Rethink? Ladies and gentlemen, they should have thought about not bringing it in here to this United States, not allowing it in. They should have closed down the planes. They should have closed down the immigration. They should have made sure that it was isolated in a certain area, not to exceed Africa. And they should have tried to contain it and take care of it there. This administration has made a very serious blunder. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
You know, I just thought of something that just makes my skin crawl, and that's the fact that with these people, with their suicide bombers, people who are willing to sacrifice their lives, they could send them people, ISIS could send them people to where the center of this thing is, and then they could come right to our borders in the United States.
Yes, and what else is new, Keith? I've been preaching that for a long, long time.
I know, the borders, doggone it. Why do you even have a border if we're not going to protect it?
Why should a sovereign country like the United States of America put up with this garbage, this absolute refuse called an Obama administration, in not protecting you, your wife, your family, my family, other families? They are just letting in uncountable stories of horror of people that want to do ill will to the United States. Forget the immigrants. Forget the illegal aliens. Just remember that there are bad people trying to come across and do harm to you and me.
Yeah, just think, in our country, we put up fences to divide our property. It isn't that we're necessarily trying to keep someone else, but that distinguishes somebody else's place from ours.
Absolutely.
And the United States of America belongs to us. And I wish somebody would come up with a bumper sticker that says, Obama, the minute I forgot what I was going to say now, the enemy within.
Well, you're not going to get any argument with me, and you mentioned The Enemy Within, and that's the title of the book by Trevor Loudon, who did an outstanding job last Thursday night at the King Fine Arts Center. And I am going to keep harping on this. I'm going to keep preaching on this. I'm going to keep yelling at Senators Risch and Crapo and Congressman Simpsons and Labrador to form coalitions of power and close our borders. This is nonsense.
In Texas, they got some good people down there.
Yes, they do.
If they weren't so busy politicking.
Well, politics is the name of the game right now, leading up to November 4th, and I do not fault them for going out and politicking and trying to keep or get a job in representing the people. But where I do get so upset is that they've known about this problem for a long time. It's exacerbated every day and made worse because of no attention to the borders, thanks to the absolute ridiculous attitude and ideology of Barack Obama.
Yeah, and Senator Cruz, he's been on this for a long, long time. Get this border secured. And I don't know whether, if I lived near the border in Texas, I think I would shake in my boots.
Well, I'll tell you, I know a lot of people down on the border in Texas that are shaking in their boots. I know a lot of people on the border in Arizona, around Douglas, etc., that are shaking in their boots. I know a lot of people in the border area of California that are shaking in their boots. They're scared of what's coming across. So what you're saying is absolutely what is happening right now.
Well, over there now, people do not shake hands. In the Middle East, they bump elbows or something like that because of all these dangerous things like Ebola and things like that.
Well, it's going to get worse, Keith, because we don't have any leadership. I'm condemning this White House. I'm condemning this president, and I'm condemning his cabinet and administration to being the worst we've ever had in the United States history. I got to run right now and do a commercial. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thank you. Senator Dean Cameron running unopposed for Senate in District 27. A voice of influence, a voice of caring, a voice of getting things done for the state of Idaho and for you. We appreciate him, and he urges you to do your patriotic duty and go vote on November 4th. And he is the highest-ranking member of the Senate, has been a senator for 23 years, and he wants you to vote yes for the constitutional amendment. Don't forget, vote November 4th. Dean Cameron, our senator, District 27, paid for by Idaho Senator Dean Cameron. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Real quick, I've only got a minute before the break at the bottom of the hour.
Okay, Joe, this thing about what's going on in Texas, where that lady is blaming the Republican Party for the Ebola outbreak, that has nothing to do with Ebola. It's all about character assassination aimed at the Republican Party.
How low can politics go, Tony, when the Democrats come out with a stupid, sleazy, under-the-table, dirty ad blaming Ebola in this country on the Republican and saying it's budget cuts that brought it here? I am so incensed at the Democrats, and I dare Democrats to call this program and defend that ad.
Well, they have nowhere to go anymore. They've run out of anything that speaks the truth. So now they're going for dirt. And they're hoping they'll destroy the party.
I agree with you. Tony, it's always good to hear from you. I got to go do a commercial break. Thank you, sir. God bless.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Bye.
I want to remind everybody really quick before I take that break with the Capitol Press, Valley White Home and Ranch. We're going to be talking about turning the pellet stove on. As a matter of fact, last night I got a little chilly watching the football game, and I said, hey, come on, let's crank up the pellet stove. So we did. And they've got all the pellets over there for your pellet stoves at Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. All the winter gloves are there, and they've got all the Ariat boots for men and women. Oh, a great display. And they've got all your animal feed for your cows, horses, pigs, chickens, dogs, kitty cats, birds, whatever. It's all there, along with great service. At Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Really good folks serving you. Here's the Capitol Press Ag Minute.
The Capitol Press Ag Minute is brought to you by OnlyAg.com.
One of Idaho's most popular corn mazes is again attracting national attention. USA Today named the Farmstead Corn Maze and Pumpkin Festival one of the top 10 fall corn mazes for family fun in North America. The maze, which attracts more than 20,000 people from around the state's largest urban area, has received national recognition several times in the past. 2 years ago, it featured likenesses of presidential candidates Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. The stories and photos of the maze appeared in Time Magazine, New York Magazine, and other major media. Farmstead owner Jim Lau says it's fun to receive national attention, but his real goal is to educate urban folks about agriculture. This is Hannah Browse.
To receive instant, exclusive, unlimited access to the West Agricultural News Source, register your account today at capitalpress.com.
Oh, thank you. Hey, how about some pumpkin pancakes right now? Oh, at Denny's restaurant with hash browns and bacon and a couple of eggs. Oh, I think that sounds delicious. Denny's restaurant Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley, with all the great menu choices, all the delicious breakfast items and lunch specials, and then, of course, dinner. Oh, my goodness sakes, you're going to love the menu, and the people are so nice over at Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley. It's the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch, and our next lunch bunch is going to be a Halloween party, and that's going to be on the 30th. Oh, don't miss it. Going to be great. Always is. Food's delicious at Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley. All right, give me a call, 436-22. I've got hay fever, folks. I'm sorry. And 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You're going to have to bear with it like I am, because with the dust in the air, yours truly sitting there going, can't help it. Sorry. Little story on Bo Bergdahl. And there's a lot of people very disgruntled, like I am, that the investigation is complete, but we're not being told anything. I want to say that again. The investigation is complete, but now we're not being told anything, and we may never be told anything. And he, Bergdahl, might never be punished, or we might never know the severity of what he did. It's all been under the rug. Some believe, of course, that Bergdahl deserted based on certain facts of emails and letters that he wrote, and then also the attitude and the perception of his comrades that he is a deserter. And it just absolutely sickens me that this administration, I don't care how you want to twist it, tie it in a knot, or whatever you want to do with it, this administration turned back into the wild, if you will, 5 really bad people, 5 really dangerous killers in exchange for Bo Bergdahl. And we, the American public, are not being told why. We, the American public, are not being told what happened. And we're not being given the information as to what the final net result was on Bergdahl and what he did or didn't do. And I don't know about you, but that's not the American way. Your thoughts, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I am sick and tired of the under-the-table chicanery that's going on with this administration. There is so much cover-up. There is so much that the American public is being lied to on a day-by-day basis, whether it's Ebola, whether it's Benghazi, whether it's the IRS scandal, you pick. And they're lying to us. And I'm going to use those words. They're lying to us. Snyder's Surplus, it's not just army and hunting supplies. No, they've got something for everybody. They got movies over there. I mean, my goodness, they got furniture over there. Couches and desks and office chairs. And they've got toilets and bathtubs. And they've got pistols and combat boots and Halloween decorations and costumes. Whew, the list goes on and on. They've got all new merchandise at their new store at 112 South 200 West of Rupert. Snyder's Surplus, but the same great friendly service. Snyder's Surplus, you stop over and see them today. Really nice people. Oh, and by the way, too, come on, get on the phone, give me a call. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Eli called over and said, hey, you know what? At Berry Equipment and Rental, we've got all the equipment you need to get things snugged up, cleaned up, and ready for a long, cold winter. That's right. They've got all the rental equipment you need at Berry Equipment and Rental. Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, South Lincoln and Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. They're waiting for you. All you have to do is stop into any one of those locations and check out like the Coyote tractors, the Doosan loaders, all the man lifts. They got everything for you. All you have to do is just stop in or give them a call. Berry Equipment and Rental, serving you. All right, your turn. Come on, give me a jingle. 436-22-44-1866-927-4587. I told you a long time ago, years ago, that I did not believe in global warming, and I thought it was the biggest hoax ever perpetrated on mankind, thanks to the incompetency and the low-classness of Al Gore and others. Now, there are those in this area that are committed to climate change and global warming. They keep changing the names, you know. At first, they wanted it called global warming, and then they realized that might be shooting themselves in the foot or elsewhere. And then they started calling it climate change, which could be anything, and they needed a safety valve to protect their idiocy, which they are. And now, caller, I'll be right with you. Former space shuttle engineer and NASA consultant and climatologist John Casey is warning, and I quote, caller, I'll be there in a minute, that a radical shift in global climate is underway and that the environmentalists have it wrong. The Earth, he says, is cooling and cooling fast. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, it's getting a little chilly out there.
Yes, it is.
And you were talking about cover-ups and all that stuff in our government and in the United States. We got cover-ups and stuff going on right here in Cache County. And you know what I'm talking about?
I believe you're referring to the possibility of the new landfill out by McCain's.
That's right.
Yeah.
Under the table, don't want to tell nobody nothing, do those and things there in the office at the Planning Zoning Board. During 2 o'clock in the afternoon when nobody can be there when they're working. That's real nice undercover work.
Let me ask you a question, being that I don't live right there and I'm not a resident of Cache County or that area, but I have some questions. Number one, isn't it right there on Highway 30 kind of a treacherous location for traffic?
Yes, it is very bad.
All right. And number two, isn't it a kind of a bad location for the winds and everything to blow all the refuse with a west-east wind over the entirety of Burley?
It could be, yes. And if you get the east wind, you get the smell and the stuff over here in our neighborhood.
And explain to me, and again, I apologize, I haven't done all my homework, I'm just coming out with some premature questions. Why do they need that kind of a landfill that close to the landfill out at the Butte?
I don't know, because it's going to be right over our watershed. That's where we get our water from, is just east of us here. And why in the hell they want to put it there, I can't figure it out. To have a place behind the Burley offices down there on all that next to the ballparks and that they had that design for that, but yet they want to bring it out here for us to put up with. It's not right.
Well, the thing I'm doing is I'm encouraging anybody with the county commissioners, the city, etc., to call the program and schedule with me a time to come on the program and discuss this. And I urge them not to hide under your desk. Come on, call me. We'll get on the air. We'll have a question and answer period, and I'll expect them to call me. How's that?
Well, they've been doing this since 2012.
Okay.
That's just how long ago it's been since they've been trying to sneak this in behind our back.
Well, again,
it's ridiculous.
Again, I will urge them to call and we'll schedule a meeting on the air. How's that?
All right.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, Zeb, I don't know. I heard yesterday and was reading this morning about Bo Bergdahl, and that what's going to come out is not going to come out until after the election.
Oh, my goodness. What a surprise. Oh, wow.
Not only that, but it sounds like, until that happens, it's unverified, but it sounds like they're going to almost completely exonerate him, give him probably his 5 years worth of back wages, a couple of $100,000, and tout him as a hero.
Yeah. These are reports that are, and again, I have talked to some people back east, and I've also talked to some people with the military, and they were very, very concerned, and I'm a little hesitant to say too much about what will happen, because you, me, nobody knows what's going on behind the scenes. But I will tell you this, that in the regard of all of our people that have served our military and a volunteer fighting force, that have put their lives on the line and have done all they can for this country, and then to have this circumstance where there's a lot of ifs, there's a lot of question marks, there's a lot of raised eyebrows, I think it's a slap in the face to our military.
Well, sure it is. I was in the service, and I can tell you that anybody that was in the service looks at this guy and he has no credibility. So yeah, and then the other thing, you were talking about the Democrats in this ad. I guess I'm looking at it that the Republicans, for some reason, we want to play straight up and truth. The Democrats, however, have figured out how to tweak the American public to their viewpoint. And they beat us at that every day of the week.
Well, let's be fair. Let's be fair on what you just said. The manipulation that goes on with the Democratic Party to twist things and twist personalities and twist people's lives to making them look like the bad guys on the 6 o'clock news, I got to be very honest with you, caller. I don't think anybody does it better than the Democratic Party and the people behind the scenes that are their leaders. I think they do a very good job. Bill Clinton was very good at destroying people while he was the President of the United States. If you ever spoke out against the Clinton agenda, you were never heard from again politically. You know that's true. And the Democrats are experts at putting people into obscurity.
But we got to figure that Republicans somehow have to figure out how to get across to the American people. I don't know why they don't believe us, why they look at us as old white male establishment. Somehow we've got I'm talking about the people that are managing the Republican Party on a national level, have to figure out how to get through to the American people who, of which, I hate to say it, 70+% are uninformed voters, and so somehow we've got to figure out how to get a hold of their emotions. Well, and I know that's not Republican. Republicans want to be for truth and straightforward, but that doesn't seem to be working for us.
Yeah, but wait a minute, caller. You will agree with me that when you have the infighting and you have the tearing apart of the fabric from within, and you've got everybody saying, well, you said this, you said that, and then the terrible harangues that have gone on in the Republican Party, and also the divisiveness against the Tea Party, when at this time to show power and show support, they should be joining hands together across their respective aisles, we could tell the Democrats to take a long walk off a short pier.
Oh, absolutely. And I've taken enough of your time, but anyway, I just get my 2 bits.
I appreciate it, sir. God bless you. Have a good day.
All right.
Thank you. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Real quick, I got a weather forecast to get in.
Yeah, good morning, Zeb. Well, I can answer the caller's question there as to why the Republican leadership doesn't want to do anything. They're basically take marching orders from the same elitists that run the Democratic Party. They're just a little less forward about how they go about it. It's just socialism light or socialism heavy.
Yeah, but wait a minute, Adrian, just a minute. You're a straight shooter and a professor and a very well educated man. You can't lump everybody in and say that in its entirety. There are a few that have caused and created the problem, but you can't lump everybody into the same vein of thought.
Well, yes. As far as the top leadership in the Republican Party, you better believe it.
No, I disagree with you. I am not going to I'm not going to classify. Here's the argument, Adrian. Adrian, just a minute.
So vulnerable on so many points But where's the national leadership coming out and say, we need to get rid of Obamacare, Common Core, all of these issues that are affecting and people are very upset about, the lack of security in our country, the open borders policies, all of these things that are very vulnerable. Yet I see no national agenda coming out with election only 3 weeks away.
Whoa, wait a minute. Now you're created an avenue to where we're back on the same page again. You can't lump everybody into the same vein of thought. I'm not always going to go along with somebody like, to use the name Karl Rove. I don't like many or most of what Karl Rove has to say. But then again, there are times, and you will admit it, you've admitted it on this program, that what he has said regarding the Republican Party versus the Democrats and what's going on with Obama, you've agreed with him. So you can't say in its entirety that they're all guilty all at the same time.
No, but see, like I said, so yeah, but the bottom line is that certainly they'll come out and make some conservative statements and so forth. But the bottom line is, when the push comes to shove, Karl Rove is fighting against the Tea Party very hard, along with Boehner and McConnell and those people in the top leadership of the party. Look what Boehner come out and said about the Tea Party. Basically says we need to destroy them, get them out of the Republican Party.
Yeah. Now, stop right there. I'm not going. I can't.
Trying to work. They're not trying to work with
Okay, I know, Adrian. Wait a minute.
Around the Tea Party, people have been trying to work with Republican leadership, and they just thumb their nose and say, take a long walk of a short pier.
But you have heard me on this program, and I'm running late on my weather, so bear with me, please. You've heard me on this program say that there's got to be an olive branch that is handed from either side, the Tea Party and the Republican Party, at the same time, to join forces, to show power, to come up with what's best for the American public. This idiotic attitude of, well, this is my ball, I'm not going to let you play with it, that's got to stop if we're ever going to try to get the power wrestled away from the liberal loons that are trying to control this country.
Well, I can guarantee you, from my point of view, the Tea Party has given out the olive branch, but all they've done is thrown it down on the ground and taken the Constitution with it, because the neocons that basically run the hierarchy of the Republican Party do not believe in the Constitution, and that's why we're seeing the policies that we see today and lack of leadership from the Republican Party to really take on the Democrats. So anyway, Carol Quigley pointed it out in the book, Tragedy and Hope, and Cleon Skousen's book, The Naked Capitalist, was a review of that and pointed that out. And I see nothing to change that elitist group. They want world government, United Nations, and we know that's allowed.
All right, I got to cut you off right there because I'm running late, Adrian. I wish that you were here in the studio. We'd do it live and we could spend more time. But I agree with your concepts that we've got to get it together, but will it? That's the other question. Thank you so much for your call. I do appreciate it.
Have a good one.
God bless you, man. Thanks. Hey, don't forget our weather is brought to you this hour by Mad River Laser. Oh, they've got Carhartt jackets over there. I love, and I'm not making this up, you can ask my wife anytime, I love Carhartt jackets. If I'm out in the cold, I want a Carhartt on. That is the best jacket made for the chilly temperatures that are on the way. And what's really neat about the Carhartts they got over there, you can get them customized with your name or your company logo on them. Oh boy, I'll tell you what, this is all at Mad River Laser. They do such a wonderful job. They're located at 502 East Street in Rupert. Nicole, and they've got all the promotional items for your business. Stop over and see them today. Mad River Laser. Here now, Michael Rogers weather.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers is at the ranch. Had a bad day for today. Our weather story this week will be clouds and cooler temperatures starting tomorrow. And that's a habit of telling you what tomorrow is before I tell you what the day is. You got to cut that out. 75 for the high today. It's going to be a lot of sun, very little clouds. And as you start into tomorrow, you'll start to see the clouds roll in, but you're going to see cooler temperatures. You're going to stay in the 60s all the way through Sunday. So this is the only day of the week where it's going to be kind of nice. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Oh, Michael with his weather forecast. Michael Rogers Weather. Thank you very much. Brought to you this hour by Mad River Laser at 502 E Street in Rupert. Really nice folks. Oh, and by the way, just down the street from Mad River Laser is Sophie's Chatterbox. 530 E Street on the square in Rupert. Oh, my goodness. They've got a bakery over there that is absolutely fantabulous. I kind of changed some of the words a little bit, but you get the drift. It's good. Wedding cakes, cookie bars, homemade bread, and delicious cinnamon rolls. Oh, they're the size of footballs. They're so fantastic. You're going to love the bakery. You're going to love to eat right there at Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 E Street on the square in Rupert. Number to call, 436-0354. Got time for some more calls? Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. By the way, a moment ago, I was talking about this gentleman, author John Casey. Now, I would suggest that you pick up his books or pick up any of his writings, and you will find this man is a very, very noted former space shuttle engineer and NASA consultant and climatologist, John Casey. And he said that the scientific community and political leaders, listen to this, that if they don't act soon, cold, I want to emphasize those words, cold, dark days are ahead. And he said that the Earth is rapidly growing colder due to diminished solar activity. Now, I research a lot of magazines and books. I'm not boasting, it's part of my job. And quite frankly, every day, every week, every month, I read probably in excess of 35, 40 books from various authors that come on this program, or different pieces of information that have been written for various publications. This is one that I took out of Newsmax magazine. Excellent story about how we are going to be going into a severe cooling trend, cold trend. And it's going to be very affecting on agriculture and the populace of the United States, and for that matter, the world. So when I hear somebody of his repute talking about going into a cold trend, I look with great disdain at the Obamas and others that are trying to do everything they can to push us into a climate change where they say the earth is burning up. It is a lie, an absolute lie. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and service is the key word. They've got a great big tire sale going on now. You stop in and say what kind of driving you do and how the vehicle's used and where you go and all this, and they'll pick out the tread design and the tire just for you, for your car, your SUV, your pickup, your horse trailer, whatever. And they've got the best tires on sale, like the Open Country AT2 and the Wildcat AT2 and the Ultra Z900. And then also, they've got a lot of the custom wheels for sale. You know, they really dress up your four-wheeled wonder. And the best brake service around. You better believe it. And front-end alignment, shocks and struts, the best in batteries for the cold weather that's coming. You stop in and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. The best. Oh, let's see what else have we got here. Talked to you about Monday Night Football last night. The Rams, it was over at halftime. The 49ers beat them 31-17. And let's see what else. Did you hear what Secretary of State John Kerry said yesterday? It was just a cold, very calculated statement, and it infuriated and disgusted a lot of people like myself. Talking about ISIS on the verge of taking Kobani. that community, Kobani. And he said, well, Kobani is just one community. I'm paraphrasing. He said Kobani is just one community in the grand scheme of things. As if to basically shine them on. You know, it was so cold and it was so uncaring. Well, Kobani is just one community. How would you like to be one of the Kobaniites and hear that remark from the Secretary of State of the strongest country in the world not doing anything to help him? Well, Kobani is just one community. Very cold. Coming up next hour, we have a gentleman coming on the program that does not like Obama. Gee, imagine that. And his name is Professor Paul Merkley, and he has written an outstanding piece about Obama and his ideology. I think you'll find that very interesting. And then at 9:30, we've got the manager of Sportsman's Warehouse. Reese Woodmeyer is going to be on, and it's going to be a very serious topic. We're going to be talking about getting lost out in the mountains, getting lost out in the hills hunting, and not being prepared for having to maybe spend a night or two out in the wild, and what you'd better have with you, okay? We're going to talk to him coming up at 9:30. Until then, we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Zeb at the Ranch. Oh, good morning. Welcome back. Hour number 2 on a good-looking Tuesday morning, the 14th day of October. I'm Zeb Bell. Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, and including some of our great advertisers like Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more at 459 Overland and Burley, and our friends at Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
They are always at your disposal, and don't forget to call them to get on the route service, and they'll come get your garbage. It's gone. It's out of there. You better believe it. They are the best. Always at your disposal. The number to call, 734-6969. Western Waste Services, waiting right now to serve you. Also, I want to remind you, too, about that. I mentioned the bus tour. I got to get that public service announcement. GOP state bus tour is going to be in the Mini-Cache area on Thursday, October 23rd from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Burley Inn Convention Center. Don't miss that. I want to talk about a dear friend of mine, and that's Joel Heward, manager of Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. And the number to write down and not forget, 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary, a family place. Their family lives there. They take care of you with flexible hours for you and your family. And when there's the passing of a loved one, please remember they always serve you with the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Okay? Call them. 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary in Rupert, serving you and your family. Going to go to the phone lines right now. I've kept this man waiting long enough, and I'm really interested in finding out more about some of his writings about Barack Obama and his ideology. And we say good morning to Professor Paul Merkley. Paul, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm just fine.
Give us a little background on yourself before we go any further. Professor Paul Merkley, I tell you what, anytime I hear the name Professor, I back up and pay attention because I remember my college days.
You've got an essay too, do you?
Yes, I do, sir. I'll have it on your desk at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
I have prophobia. I'm always meeting people who flinch at the name of professor because they've still got essays due.
Where are you teaching? And give us a little background, please.
Okay, I'm retired now. I have been officially retired since 1999. I retired at the age of 65, so you figure that out.
Okay.
I retired from Carleton University in Ottawa. Previously to that, we had taught in California, and then previous to that at the University of Toronto, and briefly I was a visiting professor at the Hebrew University. I followed that up with several research trips to Israel. So that's the brief version.
You know, I hope I'm not being presumptuous in calling you Paul, but I like to keep everything on a first-name basis. Paul, I read this piece called Some Sinister Logic in President Obama's Anti-ISIS Manifesto. I agreed with everything you had put in this piece, but I wanted to ask you this. Before we get into the intrinsic works that you wrote about in this piece, my fear has been growing for the last couple of years on Obama's ideology, his carefree, almost nonchalant attitude towards the Muslim countries and towards our energy program, etc. This man, in my opinion, seems to be completely removed from the office of the presidency and what should go on in the Oval Office. And I see a man that is so disengaged that he'd rather be anywhere than where he is currently. Do you agree or disagree with me?
Well, I doubt that he'd rather be anywhere. I think it's where he's always been. I think that he has that glint in his eye that tells you that he came into the world believing that that's where he would be. No, I don't. I think the difficulty with him is not a lack of confidence or a lack of interest. It's an excessive confidence, and it's excessive dedication to certain purposes that he has that he's determined to accomplish.
When you say excessive confidence, where did he get it? I mean, this man, in my opinion, again, Paul, is the least qualified to be the President of the United States. I mean, a community organizer, never had a business, never met a payroll, et cetera, et cetera. You know the story. Why the confidence and by whom?
Well, you know, I taught mainly history in the United States in the university. My interest shifted to Israel and Christian attitudes towards Israel and so on. But I can tell you that the recent lot of presidents have not been a particularly impressive lot. They have not been well prepared for their offices. The President George W. Bush tried to persuade us that his preparation for office was that he governed a baseball franchise, and Clinton's qualifications were not much more impressive than that. So relatively speaking, I don't think we should try to get too much mileage out of Obama's lack of experience. You're quite right, he never met a payroll. He's always got government money and foundation money in one form or another. His world is the world of foundations and philanthropies and so on, and legal charities. No, he was not well prepared for his office, but let's be careful. None of the more recent ones could be described as uniquely qualified, in my view.
What about
compare them, let's say, with Roosevelt, or for that matter with Truman, who was extremely well qualified and well prepared, and Eisenhower, who was very well qualified and had been responsible for the largest endeavors in our history for many, many years before he became president. It's been downhill.
Absolutely. What about the optics of the job? And I think I'm being, and I have to be very forthright and upfront, I have never liked the man since he was a state senator for Illinois. I don't care for anything about his ideology, so I admit I'm prejudiced. However, the optics of his job of when the first American, James Foley, was beheaded by ISIS, and the confrontation of the news media and the address to the news media, and then 10 minutes later being on a golf course, that left me with a cold, chilled feeling.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean by confidence. I mean, it would occur to most recent presidents in that office that they should avoid appearing with a golf club immediately after speaking on this atrocious matter. It's a part of the function of his optic, of his extreme confidence. My largest concern about Obama is, particularly in the context of the Middle East, that he has no real commitment to the values of our civilization. He does not make distinctions between the values of Christian and Judeo civilization on the one hand and the values of the Muslim world on the other. He began his presidency, you remember, in June early in his presidency, in June of 2009, he went to Cairo and gave that speech where he crawled, you may remember, before the Muslim world and beat his breast because we had been beating up on Islam for all these centuries and we were guilty. And it was all the tropes of the anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist view we have of ourselves. We're constantly apologizing for ourselves. We're constantly trying to level the moral playing field between ourselves and the enemy, and Islam is the enemy. His attempt to sell Islam to us is a glorious accomplishment of civilization. And in all his recent speeches about these Islamist movements that are bearing in on us, he has enclosed them all in general statements about how Islam is a religion of peace, and ISIS and movements like that are an aberration. They're not characteristic of Islam. Anybody that's ever read the Quran, anybody has any knowledge of this matter at all, can tell you that Islam is dangerous because it's based upon fantasies, it's based upon conspiracy theories, and it just rings through on every page with contempt and hate. The ISIS people who stand there with their swords at the necks of their intended victim are carrying out the mandate of Muhammad. It's in the Quran. When you meet an infidel, you should strike off his head. It's in the Quran. There's no difficulty finding mandates for what ISIS does in the Quran, in the teaching of Prophet Muhammad. It's extremely difficult to find any mandate in the Quran for this alleged moderate Islam that ISIS is supposedly betraying. This is not to say that Muslims cannot be moderate people and cannot behave as good citizens, but their problem, it's their problem, not my problem. They have to reconcile this moderate and loyal behavior with what the Quran commands of them, demands of them. It's not my place to start telling them what their theology is. The Prime Minister of Great Britain, David Cameron, when he confronted the ISIS, that recent beheading incident, he went on the blower and he explained that these people are not Muslims. They couldn't be it's ridiculous. They could not be Muslims because Islam is a religion of peace, and he just left it at that. He made no effort to explain how this could be possible. So that's the politicians' obligation, is to justify what they do. We don't have to go along with that. We don't have to pretend to believe these absurd things about Islam being a religion of peace.
Paul, and it's going to maybe take me just a little bit more to elaborate on this question, but bear with me. It was in the not-too-distant past that our United States Congressman Mike Simpson was on my program and chastised me and others for Mike's attitude against Michelle Bachmann. He sent her a letter of condemnation because she was very worried about the Muslim Brotherhood being appointed to various parts of Obama's cabinet. And then Mike came on my program and I voiced my concern, and he called us McCarthyists. I don't like being called a McCarthyist in a kind of a negative connotation. I'm calling myself an American because I'm worried about the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm worried about some of their words saying...
At the very beginning of his presidency, prominent members of the Muslim Brotherhood, prominent supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood within the major Islamic associations in the United States had access to the president. The door was open. Their names are known and their positions are known. An effort has been made to describe them as the moderate voice of Islam. They're not. The Muslim associations and the people that he deals with.
Why do you think, Paul, and pardon me, I had to hesitate a minute because I wanted to turn the page on this, and the speech in front of the United Nations, bringing up Ferguson, Missouri, in the speech regarding Muslims around the world, that left me with another chilled feeling.
Gosh, that was very, very shocking. Was that in the article you read that I wrote?
Yes.
That reference. Anyway, I did refer to it in a recent article. My recent articles, by the way, just to get the commercial out, appear on a website called The Bayview Review, B-A-Y-V-I-E-W, thebayviewreview.com.
Okay.
And I write articles on there roughly on the basis of once a week. And I wrote one on that. I was absolutely horrified by that. Yes, he was trying to put together an alliance of, quote, moderate Arab nations. These include Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, for his anti-ISIS campaign. In order to clear the moral ground for that, he went before the world and he groveled and he said, we are worse than you people, because think of that incident in Missouri. Now, that incident is supposed to be under judicial inquiry. Instead of that, he put himself at the head of the lynch mob. The lynch mob whose leadership generally comes out of CNN News. He's put himself at the head of that lynch mob. He knows that we have laws that are supposed to protect and presume innocence. He has thrown that all out the window. He's made it impossible for that man to get a fair trial. And all of this in order to engage the support of Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. Last week alone in Saudi Arabia, they had several public beheadings of individuals whose crimes are vaguely defined as showing contempt for Islam or something like that. In every one of those places that he has engaged as a moderate Islamic nation, this night and every night of the week, trucks go out and gather up young men and take them away to jail. Sometimes they never get charged with anything. They just rot there. There are no basic civil liberties. There is no religious liberty, needless to say. There is no freedom of speech in any of those countries, and we are crawling to them. The moral compass has been completely thrown away. It began with that Cairo speech. It's continued through this speech. It shows up again and again in all his references to the great world. We are crawling. We're apologizing. We are guilty. This comes out of the mindset of the universities nowadays. Obama went to university. Leaders of every major organization have been to university. And he took Sociology 101, and he knows that nobody belongs to what he belongs to. We should apologize for what we belong to. Mm-hmm. The other guys have got it right, and we are all wrong. This comes out, for instance, in the contempt for Christopher Columbus that was all over the map yesterday, right. Columbus Day.
Right.
We're groveling.
Let me ask you this. I've only got about 4 minutes left in this segment, Paul, and I've got to have you back in the future, but I want to talk about Israel. I want to talk about Benjamin Netanyahu and the attitude of our country now with Obama towards Israel. Israel, should be, I think, very concerned.
Oh, yes, they should be very much. I'm proud to say I come from the country and I support the government that is unique among Western governments in its consistent support for Israel, its consistent preference for Israel in her conflicts with her neighbors. I'm very, very proud of this. The Obama government, by the way, is going the other way. They are increasingly embracing the anti-Israel narrative, the narrative that says that having created Israel was a mistake in the first place. We should apologizing for it. It was a catastrophe for the Middle East. There are two things happening in the Arab world today. One is they are moving politically more and more towards chaos. The second, related to the first, is that they are moving more and more towards a wholehearted campaign to liquidate the Christian populations. The Christian population of the Middle East in 1900 was 13%. Now it's 1%, and it's declining. In every corner of the Middle East, Christians are being driven out. Their churches are being destroyed. Their leadership is being jailed. There's only one exception to that, and that is Israel. Israel is the only corner of the Middle East in which Christian population is growing, absolutely, and where the relative proportion of Christians to the whole population has remained constant since 1948, and everywhere else is being reduced to disappearing. And yet we dump on Israel because we are, because of a basic, intrinsic, residual anti-Semitism in our popular culture. I think that's what that comes down to, or in our elite culture, not in our popular culture.
Paul, last sentence in the story that I read this morning prior to coming on the air, I highlighted because I want you to elaborate on it just a few moments. Quote, we should do nothing with the intention of saving Muslims from Muslims.
Yes. All the newspapers are full of editorials about what is going on in Syria, what is going on in Iraq, and they all have these charts and graphs showing how this organization is related to that organization and how this organization is relatively more moderate than that organization. This is madness. There's nothing in Islam that makes possible stable government, certainly nothing that makes possible democratic government. All these organizations that develop out of opposition to existing governments in Syria and everywhere else are organizations which are themselves incapable of governing in ways that we would admire. So we've got to drop this ridiculous notion of moderate Islam. If we get more involved in the anti-ISIS campaign, and we must do so, it will not. It should not lead us to pouring support into the anti-Assad side or the pro-Assad side or any side. We don't have a dog in that race. There's no element in that race that stands for what we stand for. The only issue that we should enter that under the banner of saving Christianity. Christianity is being liquidated in all of these places. It's being liquidated because of the universal contempt for freedom of religion in that part of the world. That should be our banner, and we should find whatever elements we can find that will move that part of the world towards a situation where Christianity can live. The notion that we're going to find elements that will create a stable alternative to those tyrannical governments is ridiculous. So I've developed a motto. We should not, our interest in these affairs is to save ourselves from Islam. We should not even entertain for a moment the notion of saving Islam from Islam. We should not try to make distinctions amongst relatively moderate and relatively immoderate elements in Islam. Once we grasp that, there's a clarifying effect.
Retired Professor Paul Merkley, writing for the BayviewReview.com, and I'm proud to have him on my program. Please come back in the future.
Quickly, that the thing that brought us together is my book is called Those Who Bless You, I Will Bless. It's published by Mantua Press. You can get it by going to Amazon. Just write in my name, Merkley, Merkley, and it will pop up.
Absolutely. Come back in the future. I'll have you back on again, and we'll discuss it in its entirety. I'll get a copy in the meanwhile, and thank you again.
Very good.
All right, sir. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Retired Professor Paul Merkley, and a very interesting gentleman, and we'll have him back on the program in the near future, I promise that. Let's see, what have we got cooking here? Oh, I got a whole bunch of commercials I've got to take care of real fast, and I want to remind you about Cheney Flooring and Home Design at 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door, and they will meet or beat any price on flooring. All you have to do is just get in there and help them know what you want, and then they can help you beautify your home. That's right, and they've got a lot of repurposed furniture, and they're closed on Mondays and Sundays, but they're open Tuesday through Saturday, serving you at Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley, 678-6945. As I said, look for their blue door, okay? Also, let's remind you that Representative Fred Wood, running unopposed for District 27. Fred is the chair of the Health and Welfare Committee on the Resources and Environment Committee, and he listens and works for the people of District 27, protecting Idaho's water, creating a positive economic environment, and supporting natural resource industries, and helping preserve traditional Idaho. And he also wants to remind you to vote yes on November 4th for the constitutional amendment. Don't forget, we have a great representative in District 27, Fred Wood, and of course he wants to remind you to go vote on November 4th, paid for by Fred Wood for House Seat 27. Lots of good things coming up in the next couple of weeks, and one other issue that I want to remind you of real quick is that at least once a week I get a chance to stop into Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Why? Well, my leg is not coming back the way we anticipated it would after the surgery I had last January, so I went to the A-Team. And the A-Team is, of course, Nick Greenwell and his staff at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, and they're helping me get back on track. And believe me, there's excellent options, friendly staff, comprehensive services, a great mix of exercises, and they've got the only pool around for the hydrotherapy. Absolutely excellent. Please call them today, 678-1191, and that's Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Let me check. I just had a notice from Gina, I think, and she said Reese is ready. That is great because yours truly is still behind and not ready, so I'm hurrying. Also, I want to remind everybody real fast, Reese, I'll be right with you, I promise, that, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Well, if you didn't, you'd better have a hearing screening from Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Christine Pickup, Doctor of Audiology at 1218 9th Street, Unit 2, right behind the Minidoka Hospital across from the emergency room. And here's the number to call for a hearing screening, 312-0957. 312-0957. Don't ignore hearing loss. Have it checked out today with Christine Pickup at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, waiting to serve you. Did you hear that? Whew, on the air right now. I haven't talked to this guy for quite some time, and I'm looking forward to it. The manager of Sportsman's Warehouse, my favorite place right there on the Canyon Rim in Twin Falls. Reese Widmeyer, how are you?
Good, Zeb. How are you?
Hey, what's this rumor, and I did hear a rumor, I want to get it solidified, that at almost 7:30 this morning when my wife called you, you were still sleeping?
Yes, I hate to admit it, I was. But thanks to her, she was my alarm clock, and I'm up and ready to go for the day.
Well, the thing we need to do, though, Reese, and this is just a kind of a community service type atmosphere that I'm providing. When we get up at 3:45 every morning, we'll call you to make sure that you enjoy that portion of the day.
Well, I'll make sure I have my phone on.
Okay. Listen, seriously, Sportsman's Warehouse, and this is not just a commercial for Sportsman's Warehouse in everything that you have there. It's also an advertisement for people to be prepared when they go to the hills. And, you know, I read stories. I just caught a couple of stories from some area newspapers yesterday. There was a couple in the Capital Press, and there were some others about hunters that are going up into the hills that are totally unprepared in case all of a sudden they get lost or they have to spend the night up there. What would you suggest that people should know, and what should they take with them that they can carry easily on their person while they're hunting?
Well, there's a lot of options that you could be able to take. It's kind of really the preference of the person or the individual that's going up there hunting. And I guess first and foremost is obviously let someone know where you're going. Mm-hmm. And at least, because if they don't hear back from you within the time frame that you suggested, then, you know, they can get help or emergency helpness to be able to get them tracked down. But if you're up there spending time up by yourself, personally, I like having a hunting partner with me. If I go hunting, I like to have someone there with me. But for individuals that go by themselves, there's always survival kits that you can be able to take with them. I mean, that's the biggest thing is when you're going, you don't want to take a lot of product with you or a lot of stuff with you to weigh down your pack.
Right.
The biggest thing is, hunters, you want to make sure you're going light and you want to be quick and efficient at when you're stalking game. However, if you caught in a situation where you can't get back or you're unfamiliar, there's definitely a lot of kits that you could be able to take with you. Obviously, you always want to think about food, shelter, water to be able to get you from the elements. And so you can be able to take, we've got a kit here. It says it's a deluxe survival kit, and it comes with a starter, help to build shelter, and a signal for help. which includes matches, a fire starter, and actually has a little bit of a saw in it along with a whistle. And a lot of things you could be able to take up there with as far as an emergency poncho. Those things are so lightweight, cheap, inexpensive, and they keep you warm. They can literally be a lifesaver for you.
You know, Reese, one of the things I was going to ask you, and we'll kind of step grade this along in the process, is that it's late in the afternoon, and you're separated from your hunting buddy. You're not familiar with the area. All of a sudden, that hill looks the same as the hill you came across an hour ago, and you're lost. And the main word that comes to a lot of people that aren't used to being out in the wild, 5-letter word, panic. What would you tell people that panic all of a sudden? I'm lost, I don't know where to go. What do you tell them at that juncture?
Well, I'd just tell them to sit still and wait at that point. And because generally the worst case scenario is you get going, you get disoriented, and next thing you know, you're further away than you anticipated where you wanted to be. And again, the small, simple basics is obviously having some matches, some fire starter, or even an emergency poncho you can be able to wrap yourself up in an evening to keep you warm from the weather. You know, kind of an interesting story. I just wanted to take a quick tidbit. And there's a customer that came in here the other day, happened to be during archery season, and come to find out, they went to pull his arrow out of the quiver as he was looking, you know, at an elk.
Yeah.
And his arrow was halfway out of his quiver, and without knowing, it was kind of getting dark or a little later in the evening. Well, that arrow ended up going through his wrist.
Oh my!
And fortunately, he was in the military, and he's had a lot of that, first aid experience. He happened to have some quick clot to be able to throw it over the wound, and it actually stopped the bleeding.
Oh, my goodness.
And was able to give him in time to get back to the vehicle and back to the hospital. And they said probably if it wasn't for that quick clot, he may have lost his life for the loss of blood.
Oh, my goodness.
So, you know, it can, a real quick scenario can turn real fast on somebody.
Absolutely. Reese, would you agree with me that, and I've seen this happen with a lot of people that go up on their ATVs, etc., not necessarily hunters, but they go up, in my opinion, totally ill-prepared with the clothing they're wearing. You'll see people going up in sandals and Bermuda shorts on a nice fall day, and then all of a sudden they break down and they're in a mess. Why do people... I think it's very important that clothing has got to be a number one prerequisite.
Oh, absolutely. You know how it is. The old saying in Idaho, you give it 5 minutes, it will change.
Absolutely.
And the biggest thing is when you're going out there, and it goes for hunters as long as people on ATVs or UTVs, layers is the number one key. You want to make sure you have layers with you. Obviously, I always take a thermal insulated underwear with me, just in case. If they're small and lightweight, I throw them in my backpack in case I need them in the evening, or even a change of socks. But layers is the number one key, is to be able to keep yourself warm from the environment. And of course, if you want, you can always shed it when it gets too warm too. So you can come in, you got your Gore-Tex material, which is obviously it's the best out there, but you got some mineral wool, which is another good material you can be able to have, smart wool, and even the beanie. A lot of folks don't know, but heat evaporates from the top of your head.
Right.
It's a small, little, lightweight beanie. You could be able to keep that trapped in to keep you warm.
Do most people understand that, like at Sportsman's Warehouse, you've got these kits, I'm assuming they're pretty much already made up, and they can find one that will fit the needs that they want for their particular trip or wherever they're going. Are they aware that these products are right there and available and made up in a kit, that all you basically have to do is unzip them and use them?
Exactly, and we've got any kind of choice of a kit that you're looking for. You can go from, we call them, obviously they're a first aid kit. You can call them a small, medium, large, or They go by like 53-piece kit or a 72-piece kit, and they're here. All you got to do is just pick it up off the shelf, and the nice thing is they fit perfect in a backpack, and then just small and lightweight just in case you ever need to use it. Hopefully you never will, but it's always best to be prepared.
What about the communications factor? Let's just assume that the person is lost. They've had to make somewhat of a shelter for the evening, and their cell phone dies. What would you suggest at that point?
Well, we do carry, it's called SPOT. It's a satellite technology that is used for the outdoorsmen, for those that love to hike or even fish or even hunt, or even those just enjoying the outdoors. It's a satellite system. They got a SPOT Trace and a SPOT Gen 3 and a SPOT, it's called a global phone, which is pretty much, again, it's a cell phone, but it's a satellite phone you could be able to use as far as service plans. You can buy, on an annual basis, you can buy a service plan for it. But if you don't want to do the satellite phone, again, you've got the SPOT Trace, which is a little small, about the size of a watch. You can fit in your pocket, and it's an annual fee. You go online, you download it, but it's a situation. SPOT is used for life-threatening situations. You don't want to use it just in case you're lost and you can be able to find your way back, because there will be a fee on top of that. But the SPOT provides definitely for those in a life-threatening situation. If they're far back in the country, and it sends out a warning signal to those at a first aid or fire department or even National Guard, and they can be able to track you down based on that.
Okay. Now, Reese, one of the things, and I've had this about 30 years ago, while I was up hunting, as a matter of fact, drank the water. And Giardia is very, very serious. What would you tell hunters and outdoorsmen? You got to be very, very careful about drinking out of a possibly tainted stream or beaver pond, whatever. And is there or are there materials that they can pack with them that would purify the water in case they have nothing with them?
Oh, absolutely. And there's a lot of ways you can go out there, and again, those kits come with matches. That's one way. If you don't have, we call them the MicroPure pills. They're a water purification tablet, and if you got a water bottle or even a water pouch, you can be able to take a tablet, and it helps purifies, and it releases, chlorine, which will help effective against viruses or bacteria. Giardia, it can make a night pretty bad for you. But these little tablets, you just throw them in. It helps purify the water for you to be able to drink. So, and they're small and lightweight. I mean, they're really simple, about the size of a wallet.
And the big thing I tell people is that go to a person like yourself or any one of your staff, like at Sportsman's Warehouse, and ask questions. I mean, I go in there and I learn something every time I go in there and talking to your fully professionally trained people that understand all about the clothing or about the shoes to wear or about the guns, the ammo, the first aid kits, whatever. You got to assume that you don't know everything about everything in the outdoors, and you've got all the equipment there and the people that understand how they should use it.
Oh, we do. And, that's the nice thing. We take pride in ourselves as far as here at the store, as far as having the employees that work for us that are very experienced in the outdoors. We have employees that constantly go out every weekend or their days off or in the mornings, and they're always out in the field, and they use the product. And we take pride in that. And we do get a lot of customers that come in here that come in and ask us what's best for going out archery hunting, or what's best for their first time camping trip, or even fishing. But we take pride in that, and our customers and our employees are well trained, and we're constantly training. And way technology goes, we try to keep our our knowledge up to date with all that stuff. So
one thing I was going to mention to you, Reese, and pardon me for elongating this a little bit more than what we had anticipated, but there's a lot of people that are concerned today about possibly the power grids going down and not having any electrical power at their house and not being able to cook the food, or possibly not being able to have their refrigerators or freezers working. What are they going to do to eat food, etc.? You have some very interesting food items available for kind of the preservationist right there at Sportsman's, don't you?
we do. We've got those dehydrated food kits, and they can, again, most of them, obviously, they're all going to take water. But these dehydrated food kits, they can last up for months to years as far as to be able to be used or to consume. Mm-hmm. But we've got them from Mountain House. We've got them from the family packets up to the individual packets. And you know, if you're the type of guy that likes dessert too in those situations, we've got them there, even with ice cream bars.
Oh my goodness sakes! And you've got them in kind of what, a bucket type situation where they can cram quite a few meals in there.
Yeah, you can get them, put them in. We've got them in a bucket where, again, the buckets usually last for about a month, or they have them where they can do for 2 months. But like Mountain House, they can do 2-course meals where you can be able to have, let's say, mashed potatoes and gravy with some corn. Mm-hmm. And that can take up to, they can feed 2 individuals in one little packet. And the nice thing is about those Mountain House packets, you can just leave the food, the dehydrated food, in the packets, and you can just add water to it inside, and it will cook it inside it.
Mm-mm. So basically, when it comes to being in the great outdoors, there's a lot more to be concerned about than just maybe getting that great big buck or that elk. You've got to make sure that you can take care of yourself if you get lost and you're spending the night out in the woods. The clothing and all these survival packs right there at Sportsman's Warehouse, you've got it all, right?
Exactly, and have them come in to see us, and we'll be happy to help them.
Reese, thank you. It was informative, and, I would say, too, that those packs ought to be really good for a lot of ATVers that just slip in one of those little carry compartments while they're touring around up in the South Hills.
Exactly. The thing with those ATVs, you can put a lot more on them than you can on your back.
Amen. Reese Widmeyer, manager of Sportsman's Warehouse in Twin Falls. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it, and have a great week, okay?
Thank you, Zeb.
You bet. Take care. Thank you. Informative. I learned a lot, and the main thing is clothing and water and having these kits and knowing what's in those kits, knowing how to use those kits, first aid kits and everything, and they come in these little bitty containers or zippered pouches, and very easy to use, and I highly recommend those if you're going hunting or if you spend a lot of time up in the hills. You never know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen right now. I've got to get the weather in. And the weather is brought to you by Lennox Home Comfort Systems, gas furnaces, air conditioners, and heat pumps through our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, 678-0459. Here now, Michael Rogers weather.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers is Zeb at the Ranch. I had a bad day for today. Our weather story this week will be clouds and cooler temperatures starting tomorrow. And that's a habit of telling you what tomorrow is before I tell you what today is. You got to cut that out. 75 for the high today. It's going to be a lot of sun, very little clouds. And as you start into tomorrow, you'll start to see the clouds roll in, but you're going to see cooler temperatures. You're going to stay in the 60s all the way through Sunday. So this is the only day of the week where it's going to be kind of nice. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. Brought to you this hour by Lennox Home Comfort Systems and through our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Number to call, 678-0459. Thank you very, very much. Hey, don't forget Let's Ride. You better believe it, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley, where the fun is sold. You stop over and check out all the snowmobile needs, brand new snow machines, all all the accessories, oh yeah, they got a whole bunch in stock and more coming in. And don't forget to all the ATVs. Just look at that showroom floor. Oh my, they look like Easter eggs in all the different colors and everything else. Holy smokes, they've got them all. And again, all the accessories. And if you need some service work done, greatest service department anywhere. Right there at Let's Ride at, of course, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. And they're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6, where the fun is sold. Absolutely. Got time for some calls. Give us a jingle, 436-2244-1866-927-4587. Give me a jingle on the landline. I'd love to visit with you for a few minutes. Coming up in a little bit, we're going to have a repeat command performance of Dr. History in one of his great shows. Dr. Ken Turner with Dr. History every Tuesday right here on our program. And then at 10:30 this morning, I'm really looking forward to having back again the president of the Idaho Farm Bureau, Frank Priestley. And we're going to be talking about the wolf situation and water with the EPA and other items. So don't miss that. That's coming up. But give us a call, 436-2244. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, Zeb, I just heard about the mayor of Houston, and I don't know if you spoke about this or not. I've been very busy this morning, and I haven't been able to listen as much as possible. But the mayor of Houston is a lesbian. Isn't that lovely? And which is fine, but she wants to have all the ministers within the city limits of Houston submit their, their sermons for scrutiny to see if they're, preaching hate speech against gays and lesbians. And this kind of insanity, I just wanted to let you know.
No, I had heard this, and I was doing some more checking on the story. But let me just say this, Randy. The clergy needs to be very, very aware of what the Bible says, what the Bible preaches, and it is God's Word, not man's Word. It is God's Word. And there are rights and wrongs, and there are definites in the Bible that mankind should adhere to. Now, if I were a minister, a member of the clergy, and someone like her told me or made an edict that sermons should be submitted to make sure there's not hate speech against, like Romans 1:27, I would call her up on the phone and tell her to take a long walk off a very short pier, because the Bible is what the Bible says, and I will not let anybody change it.
Well, it's situational morals, ethics. If the gays and lesbians, that they fully expect to have full opportunity with freedom of speech, but she's in turn trying to shut down the ministers of Houston, which is a massive city. I know you've probably been there.
Yes.
And you say to yourself, you're such hypocritical. You just want to. No.
Well, Randy,
it's just unbelievable.
What it boils down to is, and I'll bet you a steak dinner, that there will be many of the clergy that will kowtow and get weak-kneed and do this and submit their sermons to her if it's requested and she tries to pass an edict like this, and they will get weak, and then when one does it, the next one does it, and then it's a domino effect. And once the clergy weakens like that on the Word of God, it's all over.
Well, I just can't imagine in Texas where you would like to think that there's still a spine amongst the folks down there that they would even allow anything. But I just, I didn't even know who the mayor of Houston was, and I still don't know who she is, but I do know she's a lesbian. And the fact that she got elected, itself is bad enough, I guess.
Yeah, I tell you what I'm going to do, though. I had heard about this, and I have not yet put together some printed material to comment on it, but I promise you I will, because I just think it's absolutely abhorrent that someone would try to go over God's Word, I'll say, and try to supervise what sermons are written and how they're written. It's the end of Christianity as we know it if that takes place. Randy, I appreciate your call. Thank you so much.
You bet.
God bless you, man. Thanks. Can you imagine ministers being, and I know some that are weak-kneed enough that they might do it, and I know others that will stick their chin down on their chest and say, want to bet? But can you imagine the Houston mayor, which is a lesbian, saying that, well, we want to try to have peace and harmony and accept the gay lifestyle, so all sermons have to be submitted for scrutiny? Never. Never. Next, of course, would be talk shows like this. I will never weaken on that. Ever. When you think about life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, or employee benefits, don't ever forget Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Dean Cameron, Todd Siemens, always dedicated and responsive to your needs, very thoughtful and caring about their recommendations to help protect you. All you have to do is call them for an appointment, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Please get a hold of them today. Really nice people. Also, I want to remind you, we got time for another phone call. Give me a jingle, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. The fall savings, no money down, no interest, 15 months on approved credit at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Holy cow! They've got carpet. They got carpet coming out of their ears right now. They got so much carpet. You need to check it out and save a whole bunch of money. And while you're saving money, don't forget, right now you can get a king-size mattress for the price of a queen. And they've got super savings on dinette sets just in time for Thanksgiving. My goodness, you better get over to 459 Overland and Burley, Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. For the beautification and the comfort of your home, Lee's Furniture serving you. Okay? We haven't had a chance to hardly visit at all with Gina over at the station. Gina, how are you today, anyway?
Well, I'm doing okay, just trying to work out some K-bar bugs, as it were.
Do you mean to tell me that you're still having trouble with your fun-filled computer?
Yeah.
What was that? Yeah. You love that, don't you?
Well, it will be a nice working system once we can get it to run properly.
I see.
Let me just put it to you that way. Am I having fun with it? Oh, joy!
What are the big differences? I mean, do you have a whole bunch of buttons and everything else to push?
No, it has all to do with, to get technical, we carry a lot of network feeds, satellite feeds, things like that.
Yeah.
And so it's making sure that we catch the proper tones for your openers and your closers, and we're having issues with that. And so, which is making the timing of K-bar off kilter.
Well, I got to tell you this, and this really is meant to be a compliment you deserve. You do a wonderful job over there, and we're very honored to have you on the show, and don't know what we'd do without you. You and Deanne are the important cogs in the wheels, so thank you for what you do.
Oh, well, thank you very much for the compliment, but I'm still trying to work out the bugs, and so that's why I'm here until 8:30 at night.
I have never had anybody on this program to where your mind, in many cases that's unfortunate, runs in the same vein as mine.
I'm very technical when it comes to this, and I want everything to be right on time and sound perfect and no dead air.
You do an excellent job. Well, we're going to get ready to let the big boys from ABC come in and mess up everything that we've put together for the last couple of hours, and following that, then we've got a very, very special Dr. History, and then at 10:30, Frank Priestley, president of the Farm Bureau. Stay tuned, Zeb at the Ranch. I'll be back in 6. Oh, welcome back. Zeb at the Ranch, hour number 3. And thank you for leaving us right here on your radio. We appreciate it. And we got a lot of things cooking. Don't forget Zeb at the Ranch, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, along with our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors and More at 459 Overland and Burley, and our friends at Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service. Call them at 734-6969. Let's take a look at what's going on over at the Chadwick Sports Grill today. Oh, wow. Does this sound good or what? I've never had this, but I got to get in there and try that. Let me try that again, please. Asian peanut chicken wraps. Asian peanut chicken wraps. Say that fast 5 times. With choice of potato super salad. That sounds delicious. Asian peanut chicken wraps. Ooh, at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Always good food, great menu, nice people at the Chadwick Sports Grill in Burley. Once again, a reminder, too, about Lennox Home Comfort Systems. Don't forget, Ramsey Heating and Electric can help you with gas furnaces, air conditioners, and a heat pump. All of this through our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, 678-0459. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. History is on vacation right now today, and so we're going to have a command performance of a Dr. History program from days gone by, and we're all set. Gina, if you would, please.
Right now, we're going to send this over to Burley, and we're going to be talking to the overseer of the history book, the man that keeps the pen and the quill in his hand, ready to take notes as to any historical or, for that matter, hysterical happening. Here he is, Dr. History.
You covered that pretty well, Zeb.
I thought so.
We do go from one end to the other, don't we?
Oh, we do. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great.
Well, I was just saying about hay fever season, and I get the allergies, especially with all the bean dust and everything, and it's kind of hard on my throat. You, of course, are Mr. Perfect. You don't have those.
Well, the smoke hasn't bothered me, really. I know a lot of people it does.
Yeah.
We've had it for about 2 months.
It's been a little rough, and I really feel some compassion and empathy for those poor people that are on oxygen and everything else. It's got to be a real tough deal with the breathing problems, with all the mess that's in the air, if you will.
Yeah, well, between the grain dust, the bean dust, and now with all the smoke, it has been rough on them.
Well, now, just tell me, overseer of hysterical and historical facts, what are we going to talk about this morning?
Well, have you ever heard of the term roving sky pilots?
Roving sky pilots?
Yeah.
This sounds like a Sky King Western from the late 50s.
Not quite.
Oh, okay.
These, actually, I've got 2 kind of short stories. If we get through this first one quick enough, I'll go on to another one they're both totally unrelated, but I think they're good.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, these guys were the frontier parsons, the ministers.
Really?
Yeah, and they called them sky pilots, and they moved throughout these untamed territories, and they had as much nerve and courage as a lot of the most famous gunmen.
Oh, my goodness.
And some, through sheer necessity, they actually did carry weapons, but most of them walked right into the middle of the gun smoke, armed with nothing but their courage and their Bibles.
Uh-oh.
And one guy made the comment, he said, good society and morals are strangers in this country. So, and you think about it, back in 1866 in that area, the untamed camp towns, the gambling joints, the party houses, the saloons, the general stores, everything pretty much stayed open around the clock Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So no one really thought about going to church or Sunday worship, but there were a few guys that were out there preaching. Now, in 1870, there was a guy named Reverend Luther Hart Platt, and what he did, he'd walk right into the middle of the biggest gambling games in Wichita. He'd tuck his fiddle under his chin, and he'd begin a medley of the most popular ballads of the day. Once he got a good round of hand clapping and stomping going, he'd shift into his best collection of hymns. And then he'd wind up his act by inviting everybody to come to his regular Sunday services in a specially built dugout, and he actually got results.
And this was in a saloon?
What's that?
He did this in a saloon?
Yeah, he'd actually go right into the saloon and start playing his fiddle.
Oh, my.
So, but there's some others that had some other ways, too.
there was a guy named Reverend Henry Weston, and they called him Preacher Smith. And at one point, he went into the saloon. He talked 35 men and 5 of the ladies of interesting occupation into attending one of his sermons.
Oh, tell us, now, what kind of occupations were those ladies in? I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Oh, you always catch me on that. I think they were singers.
Oh, the Andrews sisters.
Yeah, I think it was the Andrews.
The Supremes.
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. But he'd preach these rousing sermons, and he'd go to the saloons, and, the miners respected him. Even if they didn't always follow him, they respected this guy that would actually walk into a saloon. Now, the same guy, one day he told some of his friendly congregation that he was going to be hiking over to another camp to do a little missionary work. Mm-hmm. And his toughest friends, they advised him. They said, you better take a gun because there's Indians out there. Well, he turned them down, and he said his strength was not in guns but in the Bible. And he'd gone about 12 miles when he actually was attacked and killed by some Indians. But when they saw the Bible in his hands, they didn't scalp him. Apparently, they'd heard of his, quote, medicine, I guess. So even the Indians had a bit of respect for some of these traveling ministers. But anyway, shortly after that time, there was another freelance parson that hit Bismarck, Dakota Territory. And one Sunday, he walked into a saloon where the sound of drinking men, poker chips, card arguments, and all this going on. And he jumped up on a table and he began to expound and exhort the rough men to change their ways. Now, again, this takes a little courage, but at the end of his short sermon, he passed his hat and actually collected $40 worth of chips.
Oh, my.
So he went to the cashier and converted his chips to money to fund his ministry. So again, when you talk about courage, this is a rough bunch of people. You know that.
Yeah, and then he gave the $40 to the Andrews sisters to be the church choir.
Well, we're not sure what all he did with that $40, but anyway, then a little later, the coming of the sod house settler era, the frontier minister's way of life began to change a little. For example, there was a guy named Reverend Charles Wesley Wells, and this was about 1870. He began preaching at the age of 17, and the Methodist Missionary Organization was impressed by his zeal and his excitement, so they actually made him a full status as a minister. But he rode horseback or hitchhiked with friends through every kind of weather. I mean, blizzards, flash floods, windstorms, rainstorms, hailstorms, cold, heat. And he had about 6 scheduled meeting places along his route. And by hard riding, he could contact each congregation about every 2 weeks. But these horseback gospel men often acted as lawyers to settlers, medical counselors where doctors weren't there. They had to fight Indians and stagecoach robbers a lot of times, and obviously it wasn't a very well-paying occupation. And sometimes they worked as on ranchers or farm hands, and even cooks, salesmen, auctioneers, anything to sustain them. But some of the ministers actually walked their circuits. And in 1858, there's a Reverend Evans in Kansas that regularly walked a 250-mile circuit.
Oh, my
Kansas.
Goodness sakes.
250 miles.
Really?
So, but he'd go through this wild country unarmed. Now, on the other hand, there was a Reverend Moore in Nebraska, and he had legal permission to strap on his revolver when he mounted the pulpit, because it seems his predecessor had been mobbed and beaten up with whiskey bottles during a church service.
When he said amen, brother, he meant it.
He meant amen and leave. But there was another famous guy. His name was Peter Cartwright, and he's credited with bringing the well-known camp meetings to perfection.
Really?
You've heard about these, but about 1855, he ventured out into the Great Plains from Illinois to begin these camp meetings. And they usually lasted about 2 weeks. Families and wagons would come, horse-drawn, ox-drawn, whatever, and they'd meet near some clear stream, providing firewood and shade. The tabernacle was basically an outdoor arena with seats of split logs, and they'd have oil-fired torches that would burn all night long, and they'd have a trumpet or a bell that would sound the different events. For example, at daybreak, they would sound a trumpet to get everybody up, and then a half an hour later, there was another trumpet that would sound, and that was for family prayers, and everybody had breakfast. Then at 9 o'clock, they'd have what they called a section worship, and then at 10 o'clock, another trumpet would sound, and all the campers would come to another worship, and then at 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock. So they were doing this all day long and into the night. But between these activities of combined services, a lot of fiery exhortations. Sunday morning, that's when the testimonials resounded. Oftentimes the presiding elder would preach, and then listeners would come up and expound or testify or whatever. And you've seen it on TV, and I think it's similar to that. The air was charged with the excitement of what was going on. But under these conditions, it's kind of understandable too that between these sessions, some of the single guys and gals that had been single for a while, they would kind of get reacquainted and begin a courtship, and a lot of times that resulted in marriage. And why not? I mean, that's a good place to meet people.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of the story of the sky pilots, or the roving ministers that traveled the Old West.
Now, let me ask you a question right there, the sky pilots. Now, is this a phrase that you hung on those people, or is this a phrase that was actually used back in the 1860s?
I had never heard of this before, and so as I came across this article, this refers to them as roving sky pilots. I almost think that that's just a modern term that somebody has decided to throw onto this article.
The reason I ask that is the only time that I've heard the word pilot used in the 1860s and 1870s was in riverboat traffic with the piloting of the boats up and down the Mississippi River. I've never heard the word pilot used in the verbiage that you had.
Right, and like I say, I don't think it was back then. I think it's just how they titled this particular article in modern day.
Okay, well, you still got about 9 minutes left to hit us with another. I know you're going to tell us another story about one of these circuit preachers going to these various places as a talent scout, finding all these singers.
Actually, I'm gonna totally switch gears. But I'm gonna come into Idaho here, a little closer to home.
Okay, good.
I'll tell you about a gal named Peg Leg Annie. Peg Leg Annie.
You think I'm going to touch that story? You're crazy. Go ahead.
Well, about the time that old Sherman was making his famous march to the sea, they discovered a rich ledge of gold-bearing rock, and it was discovered in southwestern Idaho.
Okay.
And some of the Confederate sympathizers that were there, they named the mining camp Atlanta. And you've heard of Atlanta.
I've been there.
And because they named it in honor of Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this community and the other one nearby, Rocky Bar, you've heard of that, which was another mining camp nearby, they became two of the most rip-roaring boom towns in the gold fields. Well, about that time, about 4 years after these started, there was a baby girl born in 1868, and she was destined to become a kind of a heroine. But she had all kinds of unfortunate things happen. Her name was Annie McIntyre. And her dad, her mom died when she was born, and Annie's dad was named Steve, and he was the owner of one of the richest gold mines in the territory, but he got involved into a street brawl, and he was killed. Well, Annie was left, she was just a young gal, and she married a guy named Morrow. Annie Morrow was her name, but he died at an early age, leaving her with 5 children. So anyway, and there's a picture of her, and she is a very attractive gal. I mean, dark eyes, brown hair, and so obviously she's a natural target for some of the other miners. But Annie carried a small revolver in a holster strapped around her waist, and when a customer became too obnoxious in her boarding house or her restaurant, she'd just fire a couple of rounds, and usually that pretty well took care of things.
At him, or the ceiling, or the floor, or what?
It doesn't say. But it evidently it got the message across.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. So, but, sometimes individuals or people would come in, families that were stranded, penniless in Atlanta. Annie was kind of a Florence Nightingale of the area. I mean, no one was ever turned away from her door empty-handed. If they were destitute, had no place to stay, they were hungry, if they were sick, she opened up her restaurant and her boarding house to these people. Now, one of her good friends, I know we're running out of time, so I'll kind of get through this, but one of her good friends was a Dutch lady, or a German lady, and they called her Dutch Emma. And she was a pretty rough gal. I mean, she supposedly knew 7 different languages, and she could cuss out a minor in all 7 languages, no problem at all. But anyway, in late spring of 1898, Dutch Emma and Anna decided that they were going to go from Atlanta over to Rocky Bar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the 2 women had no reason to think there was going to be any problem because it was late in spring, but anyway, as they headed over that direction, a sudden blizzard hit right in those Rocky Mountains, and you know how it can hit right here in Idaho.
Boy, yeah.
But this deadly snowstorm raged for 3 solid days, and Annie and Dutch Emma didn't show up in Rocky Bar, so they sent out a search party, and lo and behold, they found Annie just delirious. She was cold. She was nearly frozen. All she had on was a dress. Anyway, it turns out that she was crawling on her hands and knees, delirious. But they sent a man from Atlanta over to Mountain Home to get a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by the time the doctor got there, she had gangrene in both of her lower limbs, and so they amputated her legs above the ankles. But anyway, she recuperated, and they did find Dutch Emma's body, and Annie had actually taken the clothes that she had, the coat or whatever, and tried to save Dutch Emma, but it didn't work. But anyway, Annie recovered, and her children gradually moved on, had grandchildren. She continued to work as far as she could.
Well, whoa. She got married then, right?
Yeah, she had married after her dad died.
I see.
And she had the 5 kids.
Oh, 5? Oh, okay.
Yeah, before she lost her feet.
I see.
So. But she actually lived until about 1924. She'd saved $12,000. And here's a woman that had helped so many people, but she gave this life savings to a friend to take to a bank in San Francisco. Well, the friend and the money dropped out of sight. Well, it was all of her money, and so in her declining years, she basically was on her own. She died in 1934 and is buried in Mountain Home.
Okay, now wait a minute. There's a couple of questions I got here. She gave $12,000 to a friend to invest in a bank in San Francisco.
Well, to take to the bank.
Well, there's banks in Idaho. There were banks in Boise and Mountain Home.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, San Francisco was kind of the big league, I guess. Maybe she thought that it would be safer there. I don't know.
But it would take, like, from here to Frisco, if you were on a stagecoach, back in what year?
1924.
1924. Oh, you're still talking about, 3, 4, 5 days?
Well, even by train.
Yeah.
It would have taken, quite a bit of time.
So the friend basically wasn't such a great friend, and it was bye-bye $12,000, huh?
$12,000. In 1924, it'd be worth 10 times that amount today or more.
Easy, yeah. And so she died all by herself.
Yeah, she just kind of, doesn't say anything about her kids, or she didn't have any money. She was supported by her friends.
How did she get around? You never did explain that. She lost both of her feet, you said, right?
Right, yeah, they had to amputate both above the ankles.
And so...
Now, they did actually eventually figure out a way to have some prosthetics, some artificial limbs.
Really?
And so she was actually able to walk eventually.
Oh, my.
But back then, for both legs to be amputated, it couldn't have been a pleasant thing anyway.
Oh, absolutely not.
Well, but she was a courageous woman who had all kinds of bad luck, and yet, was a Florence Nightingale for travelers and people that were sick and people that were, had no place to stay. And she boarded them in her boarding house, and she fed them in her restaurant. It was a haven for people who were unfortunate.
Have you ever been to Atlanta?
Yeah, I've been over there.
Uh-huh. Yep. Have you noticed when you drive into town and you go real slow, town being it as it is, that sometimes when the local pub is open and some of those people turn and press their faces up against the glass, that it reminds you of the movie Deliverance?
I had never thought of that. But it might make you a little nervous about camping over there. I don't know. Yeah, we have some interesting people in Idaho, don't we?
Oh, my. Two of which are on the air right now.
That's right. We're probably about as bad as it gets.
Well, I tell you what, we've learned a lot today. We learned about traveling circuit preachers that were also talent scouts for musical television shows. And we learned all about Peg Leg Annie, and you did it again. Very interesting dissertation this morning.
Well, I always like the ones that are a little closer to home, like, in Idaho here, and because it, most people know, I mean, obviously they know Mountain Home, and probably most of them have heard of Atlanta, and that area, Rocky Bar, and over in that area.
You know what we ought to do sometime, due to the fact that we're both so wealthy and so, we're just comfortable in our lifestyle that we don't have to work. We ought to just take a little road trip sometime, and your wife, my wife, you and I, and we'll just go around the state of Idaho and jot down all the personal stories that we get on the road, and then kind of like the old Charles Kuralt series, On the Road with Charles Kuralt, we'll have this On the Road with Dr. History.
Yeah, oh, that'd be great. I've always thought that if I could ever retire, I would love to just take off. And in fact, here in a couple of weeks, I am going to be gone because I'm going to be making a trip to Peoria, Illinois, to visit a daughter. And on the way back, we're going to be stopping at some of the places like Mount Rushmore. I'm hoping to hit Cody, Wyoming, the Buffalo Bill Museum, maybe Custer's, Battlefield. So I'm hoping to have some real-life, stories to tell you where I can actually be there.
All right. Dr. History, better known as Dr. Ken Turner. God bless you, my friend. Take care. And don't forget about all those different ladies groups that are trying to be singers.
I think they're Chiroptimus or Optimus or something. I don't know.
God bless you. Have a good day.
You have a good day, then.
Thank you, sir. I love that segment. Dr. History. Thank you very much.
And there you go, Dr. History, better known as Dr. Ken Turner. And you can listen to some of the old programs we've had on dr-history.com. Real quick before we send this back over to our studios, I want to remind you, on Thursdays we have a segment called Cassia County School Days, and we thank A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley for all their help. They've got shoes arriving every day. They've got Halloween costumes. They've got holiday dresses, along with hundreds of new infant outfits. All of this and more at 1308 Overland in Burley, A Child's World. And don't forget, too, Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Drive in Burley. Life-saving colonoscopies. Very important. All of you pay attention. Life-saving colonoscopies performed by outstanding surgeons right there at Ambulatory Surgery Center. And if you have questions, please give them a call at 677-8888. That number again, 677-8888. Ambulatory Surgery Center, along with The Child's World, bringing you school days in Cassia County. We're going to be right back after this.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh, thank you very much, and welcome back. And I want to remind you that Speaker of the House, Scott Bedke from District 27, urges you to vote in the elections on November 4th. Scott is very concerned for Idaho and its growth and prosperity, and he also is concerned about the future of the United States, and he urges you to exercise your patriotic duty and vote on November 4th. And don't forget to vote yes for the constitutional amendment HJR 2, paid for by Representative Scott Bedke of Oakley, District 27. Right now, we're going to go to the microphone and the telephone, and we have a guest with us this morning I've got a lot of respect for, the job he does and the organization that he represents, and that's, of course, the president of the Idaho Farm Bureau Federation, Mr. Frank Priestley. Good morning, Frank. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. Thank you for allowing me to join you today.
Oh, I appreciate it, sir. And by the way, how's everything over in Franklin? Nice and sunny and beautiful fall day, I hope.
Sunny, beautiful fall day. If we haven't had a gorgeous fall this year, oh my gosh.
No, that's right. Listen, Frank, one of the reasons I highly respect not only the organization you represent, but you personally, is you tell it like it is. And I've got 3 subjects here this morning I wanted to get into in the time permitted. One of them being the EPA and the regulations on water. It wasn't that many months ago, and I had a gentleman by the name of Andy Johnson from Fort Bridger, Wyoming on my program, and he had dug a little farm pond for his family to enjoy and the livestock to enjoy and the wildlife to enjoy. And the EPA came in and started fining him $75,000 a day. These are nothing more than thugs as far as I'm concerned. What are your thoughts about the regulation of water here in this country by the EPA?
We have a proposal out with that. We call it Ditch the Rule. It's sponsored by the American Farm Bureau. It's what's happened with that, Zeb, is for years Harry Reid and Obama and the associates, I guess I'll say, has been trying to take navigable out of the Clean Water Act. And what that Clean Water Act allows is that navigable streams is under the jurisdiction of the U.S. government. Navigable, we take, is that you can take boats on and trade and that type of stuff. So, you're talking about how we think, it should be talking about the Columbia, Mississippi, the Missouri, those big rivers that we have trade going up and down. So they wanted to take out just the word navigable, and so basically that would be all waters would be governed by the U.S. government. Well, we've stopped that in courts, we've stopped it in Congress, and now what's happening is they're doing an end run around it and trying to give that control and authority to the EPA. And literally what, I've forgotten the name of the bill, but it's not a bill, it's a rule by EPA, but it gives them the jurisdiction, basically, of all waters. Mm-hmm. We're very concerned with it because of, like that little pond that you just talked about, the ditches, the mud puddles, any kind of water that collects on or doesn't collect and has the potential to collect will be governed by the EPA. We think that is just a huge government overreach that's been knocked down by the courts and also through Congress, but they're trying this end run around there and getting that control.
Frank, I made a facetious remark a couple of weeks ago on the program, but I think from what you say, it could happen that if I went out in my backyard in my orchard and dug a couple of little ponds for my grandsons to float a boat, it would be illegal and possibly legislated, and I'd be deemed illegal by the EPA. Is that right?
That's true.
How do we fight this?
Even irrigation ditches. So sometimes they got water in. Most of the time they do not. Mm-hmm. That would be ruled by the EPA.
Now, ditch the rule. Explain how we can help fight this on behalf of not only the Farm Bureau, but everybody else listening.
You know what? They really ought to take a look at this. Go to the Farm Bureau website and go to Ditch the Rule. It's one word, ditchtherule.fb.org. And it has quite a lot of information about this and what it is and how you can send in some comments regarding this deal. This is something that really every American ought to be taking a close look at. It's just a flat overreach of government control, and the EPA says, well, we're overlooking this, and it's not near as bad as what you're trying to do. Well, you know what? The only thing that has in that it's so vaguely written in places that they can interpret it however they want to interpret it, and we found that in the past that's exactly what happens sometimes.
And also, if you don't mind my throwing this in, and I'd have you elaborate on it, this is just nothing more than a blatant attack on private property rights, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely it is.
And, this seems to get worse all the time with the EPA, and it leads me right into another form of that 7-letter word, control, and that's the wolf issue that you have written about in the Farm Bureau magazine, and I think it was an excellent article. But the reintroduction of wolves since 1995 has turned into a major headache and also a hassle with the environmentalists. They have broken almost every single agreement, and they want to change the agreement that we have now. Your comments about the wolf situation?
Oh, Zeb, I'm not sure we've got enough time to get to the wolf. Well, you know what? They when they come into this deal, they told us that to get them off the Endangered Species Act, they'd have to have 15 breeding pairs or 150 wolves. And I don't know how in the world you really count wolves in Idaho when you go flying over that wilderness area and can't even see the ground, let alone what's going on it sometimes, in those forests. The Fish and Wildlife claim that they have between 700 and 800 now. I can't think that that's anywhere near the right number. And I have no way of knowing what that right number is, but as many as that you can't count. I would be surprised if we're not closer to 1,200 than we are 700.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thinking. And along with that, the depredation that goes with that, you've got to prove depredation. You've got to prove the kill. Well, okay, how many of them are just don't show up when you round up the cattle or the sheep to come back in? How many are missing? And that happens frequently that you can't find anything there to claim a depredation on. And so that with cattle, we're getting back lower weaning rates, weights on these calves, the stress, the movement. We're having more cows that come back that's empty. They're not pregnant. They've aborted their calves because of being chased and that type of stuff. And I know environmentalists don't like, well, that's their problem, not ours. But you know what? It really is our problem. It's all of us' problem. A strong nation is one that can feed themselves, and they're certainly working on changing that, it seems like to me.
Frank, one of the things that bothers me is every month, once during the month on this program, I have the Fish and Game invited over to the program to discuss all the different issues, and they are in charge of management of the wolves, and the management is going to have to be control of the numbers. And there again, the environmentalists are stepping up, and their unlimited billfolds are appealing to the general public across the United States. Oh, don't touch the poor wolves, even though we've got numbers, I think, exceeding over 1,000 in this state alone. How do we go about beating and managing wolves when the environmentalists are standing in the way?
Well, that really is the problem. That's the big problem that we have. How do we do that? Zeb, I wish I knew. I really wish I knew exactly what it is that they was trying to get to prove in the first place. I agree with you. I think that there's well over 1,000 wolves in Idaho alone. You're seeing it more in the states. They're supposed to just stay right here. Well, they don't. They're spotted, and they're in Washington. They're in Oregon. They're spotted in Utah. They travel. They move. And I don't know. I think that's just another way that they have of getting the livestock off of the ranges. I don't know. I guess I'm a little greedy, but I like being on top of the food chain, and having to watch your back out there for a pack of wolves coming in isn't exactly my idea of having fun.
Absolutely. Frank, I know the Farm Bureau doesn't advocate or endorse any candidates, but I'm very concerned about this election for governor and the positions that each one has taken. Speaking each one, I'm talking about Butch Otter or Mr. Belukov. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, we're talking about the wolf issue, and our governor hopeful says that he's accused Governor Otter of spending state money on a wolf advocate depredation or whatever wording that he used on that. I don't remember exactly what he did say on that. But there's been the federal government has taken out they don't pay for the depredation anymore. They don't pay for the control. So that's turned back to the state. Well, the state and the Fish and Game doesn't have monies to do that. The livestock industry has stepped up and said, you know what, we will raise $400,000, and the Fish and Game will match that $400,000. I think it was $400. It was either 4 or 8, and I don't remember that figure exactly. Zeb, I apologize for that, but it's a substantial bit of money that the industry itself is coming up with, to do that. The state is going to throw in some money too, but I think this is to be stretched over a 5-year deal. But when the industry has to come in and protect its own backyard from what the government promised that they would do, kind of an owie deal. And we've raised the brand registration fee $1 a year, and that's where that's coming from. So everybody that has a brand will be getting a $5 increase in the registration for that brand.
You just used the words protecting our own backyard, and that leads me into the last subject I wanted to visit with you about this morning, and that's the state of Idaho's management of our public lands. I have been an advocate of that for a long time. I've had various segments on with Speaker of the House Scott Bedke, and I know the Farm Bureau is in support of state management. What would you tell people that are kind of on the fence and don't know which way to go? What would you do to explain to them why it would be beneficial to the state of Idaho to manage our public lands?
Zeb, pardon me, the first deal that I really saw on the management of federal and state lands, I was on a tour with a legislative tour in northern Idaho one time, and we was on a bus, and they took us up this canyon road and stopped right on a corner. And I thought, wow, this is kind of a crazy place to be stopping the bus. And but they got us out, and what that was, it was right on the line of federal forest, and it was either state or private, and I'm not positive which one it was, but definitely it was federal on one side and state or private on the other. And what they were pointing out there was just seeing the difference of the management of that forest. What had happened about 2 or 3 years before that, it had a big ice storm come through there and broke off a lot of trees. And the forest on the federal side was just dying and just absolutely looked terrible. As far as you could see across there, you could see the line just like it was a roadway, and see the different management of that. So basically, best synopsis is the state manages their lands, the federal does not. The state shows a profit on their federal lands. The federal shows a deficit. And so, just from the standpoint of management alone, it's certainly, to me, it's certainly wise to turn it back to the states. It's more locally controlled, locally run, by our people that are here instead of Washington, D.C. I think that it would be a money-making deal, and certainly the lawsuits and the permitting areas things is so much less and easier to manage with the state than it is the federal. And they'll say, well, you know what, we can't afford the fire problems. I don't think that we should just take that over and today it's the feds and tomorrow it be ours. I think that it should be gradually brought into, maybe over 4 or 5, and this is me personally talking, about a 4 or 5 year period, to where it is managed and totally run by the state. That doesn't mean that it's all a state land and we're just going to turn around and sell it, and that's what some people will say. It's just managed by the state, and the Constitution tells us that it should be ours.
Absolutely.
And just the West, you look at the East Coast, and it's all private and state land. Here, we've got so much federal land, but we think that it be managed best by the state.
We've got time for just one question. Caller, real fast, please. Go ahead.
Yes, Frank. A.J. Belukov said that we couldn't afford to manage our own public lands, and I'd say, well, if we managed them, and like you said, there's money to be made. And then I was just curious as to what you thought about Mr. Mike Simpson and his role at, appropriations or whatever committee is on for the EPA, and has he been doing his job, do you believe? And I'll hang up.
Good question. Go ahead, Frank, please.
We think that Congressman Simpson is what you're asking. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you, but the question was, is Congressman Simpson doing a good job?
Yes.
We think that he is. He's voted very, very strongly for us in the issues that we're going for. We think that he does a good deal. There's one issue that we kind of disagree with him on, and that's over the Boulder White Clouds issue over there in the Custer County area. Him wanting to make that more wilderness. We think that we've got enough wilderness, but the president wants to make it a monument, and we're against that also. We're totally for multi-use management, and that's what we think. Overall, we think that Simpson has worked hard for us. He's stopped the EPA on a lot of things. He's taken funding away from them. I think that Congressman Simpson is doing us a good job.
Frank, I want to tell you how much I appreciate your time this morning out of your busy schedule. President of the Idaho Farm Bureau Federation, Frank Priestley, thank you, sir, and please know that I'll be in touch to have you on future programs. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed.
God bless. Thank you much. Very nice gentleman on the program this morning. Is President of the Idaho Farm Bureau Federation, Mr. Frank Priestley. Thank you. Time for the weather. My goodness sakes, I've got to get the weather forecast in here. And the weather this hour is brought to you by Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. And don't forget, you won't find a better butcher shop for your prized wild game. Locally owned custom meat processor for over 20 years. They sell taste one bite at a time. Scarrows Meats. Here now, Michael Rogers weather.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers is at the ranch. Had a bad day for today. Our weather story this week will be clouds and cooler temperatures starting tomorrow. And that's a habit of telling you what tomorrow is before I tell you what today is. You got to cut that out. 75 for the high today. It's going to be a lot of sun, very little clouds. And as you start into tomorrow, you'll start to see the clouds roll in, but you're going to see cooler temperatures. You're going to stay in the 60s all the way through Sunday. So this is the only day of the week where it's going to be kind of nice. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
There you go, MichaelRogersWeather.com. Brought to you by Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. They are selling taste, one bite at a time. It is good. You better believe it. While we've got just a minute here, I wanted to remind you, too, about our dear friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. Oh, my, as you've heard me say, they have a great big tire sale going on right now with the best tire value promise in the industry, peace of mind tire protection, and lifetime tire and mileage care. They've got great tires, all the tread designs on sale. The Eclipse tire, all-season traction, 70,000-mile warranty, the Wildcat AT2, the Open Country AT2, all of these tires on sale, along with many of the custom chrome wheels and the best in brake service. Absolutely the best of professionally trained technicians and brake service for you, along with shocks and struts, front end alignments, and the best of batteries. Going to get colder, and you better be ready for that cold weather with a good battery. Stop in and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, John on Poline and Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Yes, sir. Tomorrow on the program, Deanne, who is the guest that we have for 9:30 tomorrow morning? I'm trying to think. I can't remember. We've got Doug Johnson on at 9:06, and then I know at 10:06 we've got the Idaho Fish and Game coming on, and they're going to be on for the entirety of the hour, and then Deanne's trying to furbishly run over and give me this information. We have Dr. Ivan Eland, and he's going to be talking about a book that ranks the presidents on how well they have contributed to peace, prosperity, and liberty, and it's called Recarving Rushmore. I'm looking forward to that. That's Dr. Ivan Eland tomorrow at 9:30, so don't miss that. Whew, Gina, busy day here today. Thanks for all your help.
Anytime. And I'm looking forward to that segment about recarving Rushmore. I think that's going to be very interesting, and I wonder how he is going to rank the presidents of the 20th century.
Especially what we have now.
I think he's going to be the bottom of the stack.
I think you're going to find a lot of reasons to put him on the bottom of the pile.
I don't think we're ever going to see him on Mount Rushmore.
Did you hear the news during the 10 o'clock break at ABC on the Ebola threats?
Yes, I did.
Oh, Gina.
Scary.
I mean, what were the numbers again? I want to make sure I didn't hear wrong.
I think that they said 20 to 25 new cases a day. Is that what they were saying?
Yeah, I think, and then ultimately they were saying that it could end up to, what, 10,000 a month or something like that?
Yeah, and over 70% of those people will die because of it.
There is no reason, and I'll say this and I want to get your response, there is no reason that we should have to suffer through this.
No.
It should have been maintained and contained over at the point of origin in Africa. Should have never been allowed to come here to this country. And the Obama administration is at least half the monopoly board behind in taking care of this the right way.
Yeah, and then they've also pretty much confiscated the vaccine that was created.
Yeah.
And there's just a whole bunch of different things that I think this administration could be doing better to contain the Ebola virus, and they're just not doing it. They just don't care.
One of the things they better do, and it better start happening now, is a very informative source to the general public on a daily basis so that people do not panic.
Exactly, and know the protocol that you should be following, washing your hands, doing this and that. They should have, a protocol, a set protocol set for this.
Absolutely. Gina, thank you so much for all you do for the program, and we're going to get out of here and say tomorrow morning at 8:06 we'll start it up again, saddle the horse for 3 hours. Zeb at the Ranch on KBAR 1230, and then streaming live all over the world on ZebBell.com. And we'll be back tomorrow morning. The way things were, the way things ought to be. God bless. We'll see you then.